Hello, everybody. It's Reggie time again with Patrick in episode 4, I think, of our Stepping Stones series. And today, Patrick has asked to review a bunch of hands where he's three bet from the blinds with unpaired hands and sometimes miss, sometimes hit, but it's just spots that he finds a little bit troublesome. So I'm going to hand the video over to Patrick now. We're looking at his holder manager page and we've set some filters up to hopefully capture a lot of the hands that he has been having problems with. So with that said, over you go, Patrick, and we'll let you take control from here.
Yes, thank you, Reg. I think you've summed it up quite nicely in the introduction. For as far as I feel, I've been leaking money from the blinds, especially with the hands you just mentioned, like higher aces, Broadway aces, lower suited aces. I try to three bet with a polarized range, but I feel like, or I should be three betting a polarized range, but I'm not doing that. So yeah, I was hoping to pick up some stuff from this session in order to get my win rate even higher.
Well, first of all, I'm not that much of a big fan of three betting a polarised range out of position. I'd much prefer to do that when I'm in position because when we're out of position, people are going to call us a lot wider. So we don't really want to be depolarised too much. I'd rather three bet just a much wider value range and know when there's many bluffs when I'm out of position. Because if it's like we're small blind or big blind versus button, people are going to call us way wider than they are from other positions. Say, for example, somebody opens, I don't know, 8-6 suited from the button and we three bet. They might peel that when they're in position, but they're probably not going to peel it when they're out of position. So I think if we are truly three betting a depolarised range from the blinds, I think we can maybe not do that. But I've already seen the hands that we're going to filter for, so I don't actually think you are three betting depolarised at all. I think maybe you um, just maybe either not understanding exactly what three betting depolarised means, or perhaps you just used the wrong word because English isn't your first language. But
Yeah,
from what
could
I've
be.
seen, we're not three betting depolarised from the blinds, and I don't think we should be. I mean, the ranges we've put in have been like suited aces and mostly decent Broadway type cards, aren't they? And to me, that's somebody who's betting more, just like betting wider for value pre-flop because you know people are going to call with worse hands. I mean, for me, three betting a polarized range means more of the aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace, king, and then more just to make the point of the 7-2 off. That's kind of like what polarized means to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, obviously not 7-2 off, but I was just using that to make the example. I don't think you are doing that. I don't think you're three betting any junk from the blinds. I think you are three betting some hands that could be considered junky, like ace 7 suited, things like that. But they do contain blockers and the suited, so they can certainly flop well some of the time. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a problem most players have. I certainly have this problem too. I mean, you get dealt ace king pre-flop, you're loving it. You three bet, you're loving it. You get called, you're loving it, and then you miss and you're hating it. That happens to all of us a lot of the time. But there are things we can do. So hopefully, when we get into some hands, we can just um, not necessarily say this is what you should have done in this spot, but hopefully talk about some thought processes we can go through when we're in this situation again, so then we can tackle it better in future. Because there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution to this problem. It's going to be very player dependent, and any dynamic you have with the particular player, all these things are going to come into play. And we can't just say you should always see bet ace king, or you should always check call when you miss, or whatever. That doesn't come into play. There's lots of different things we can do, and it's going to be a lot of it's going to be reliant on how much you know about your opponent. And if you don't know much, maybe then we can start thinking about setting up some default lines versus unknowns. But we'll talk about that when we get into the hands. So if you've got any particular hands that you want to get straight into, I think we should do it.
Um, yeah, I haven't really like checked the filters yet, but I think we can start with the first hand here, like the ace queen. So let's see. Okay, guy has kings. So UTG opens, and that's already like
Well, that three bet's
I
already
already don't
thin.
like my ace queen that
No,
much.
I don't like him. I mean, the guy's playing 22-16. You should know he's a regular. Well, not know because you've only got 130 odd hands on him. But you might know he's a regular. I don't know if you do or you don't. But that said, ace queen off. three betting that from the small blind versus an under the gun open seems a little bit ambitious to me. It's like,
Right.
what are
So
you hoping to happen when you three bet here with ace queen off? When you make this
yeah,
kind of
not
three
much,
bet,
definitely.
what were you hoping for? Hoping he folds? Were you hoping he
Um,
calls? I mean, obviously we don't want him to four bet because that's a disaster for us.
exactly. Like, there's not a lot of good stuff that can
No, so
happen after
this
you
to
three
me
bet
looks
here.
like you're just looking at your ace queen and thinking, oh, ace queen, that's pretty good. I need to three bet without really taking into consideration that we're three betting somebody who's raised under the gun. So for a
Right,
start there, I
and
mean, the three bet seems mighty ambitious to me.
yeah, and I agree, and that's exactly what I think I wanted to discuss in this video. Like sometimes I feel a little bit lost with hands like Ace Queen in the small blind, and I really don't like this particular example already
No, that would just
because
call
Ace
here.
Queen off is really not that great. You
No, I
would
mean,
call.
if we had a read that whatever he's called him, so we're just going to call him under the gun because his name's ridiculous to pronounce. If we had a read that he was particularly loose and aggressive, he'd back a bad aggressive play like 50-30, something like that, we could definitely three bet for value.
Right.
But again, I've just noticed his stack size too. So again, we're putting ourselves in a spot where a lot of his range is just going to jam because he's got 42 blinds and we've made it 8 blinds. He's not going to call too often. So we're already putting him in a jam or fold situation a lot of the time, which neither of those is good for us. We don't want him to jam in particular. I mean, we might want him to if he's really bad, but given this player's 22-16 with a 1.2% 3 bet, I'm presuming that's what 1.2 means.
No, that's aggression factor. It's
Right.
7.53 bet.
Okie dokie. So, anyways, regardless of that, we don't know enough about him really to be three betting, and also his stack size is not really good for us to be squeezing, for us to be three betting. So, I mean, it just looks to me like you haven't really assessed the situation. You just looked at ace queen and thought, yep, that's good, three bet. So, first of all, perhaps that could be one of two things. You're playing too many hands and you're autopiloting a little bit, or maybe you're just overvaluing ace queen. It's probably going to be one of those two things, or maybe a combination of both. So what do you think about
I
that?
think it's number two, personally. Like, I don't play too many hands. Playing 3 tables of Snap at the moment, and I can perfectly keep up with the pace. But yeah, those are just the hands that I feel like I either overvalue or undervalue in certain spots.
Yeah, but this is what we
And
were saying earlier on. Everything's situational, and ace queen is usually
right,
going to be a three bet versus the cut. Well, it's definitely going to be a three bet versus the cutoff or the button. It's not necessarily always a three bet versus ace queen versus under the gun. So you just need to be really paying attention to where the race is coming from. Because yeah, ace queen is usually how we want to three bet. Probably not how we want to three bet versus under the gun, and almost certainly not against someone who's playing 22-16 with a 45 big blind stack to start the hand.
right.
So yeah, that's for me. That's probably just you overvaluing the hand itself. And ace queen, it's a nice hand, but I mean, there's lots of players that aren't overly in love with it. I will be one of them because yeah, I mean, he's going to miss a lot sometimes, especially when it's under the gun. We're going to be dominated, not a lot, but a decent amount when we get action, and when we get cold called, like we have in this particular spot. We're never going to be in that great shape because when we three bet versus under the gun, even the small blind and the big blind cold calls, his range should be really strong unless he's a dreadful player.
Yeah, and that's the problem I want to mention though. I haven't seen any like VPIP or 3-bet stats from these guys until now, so
No, of course not,
we
because
obviously
we
don't
have.
have a HUD at the Snap tables, but
Yeah, we need to make that aware for people who don't know. Watching the video for the first time, Patrick does play Snap on 888, which isn't supported by a HUD. But having said that, do have quite a good note system, and I know you're very diligent in note taking. So I expect you to know more about your opponents than most players. But I don't
yeah, but
expect you to know too much about people you've only got 100 hands on or 60 odd hands on.
exactly.
Yeah, it's hard to know about them people. So then we do have to go into kind of
So
the murky
for as far
area.
as we,
Sorry, buddy.
yeah, no problem. Go ahead, go
No, I was
ahead.
just going to say then we get into the much murkier area of having to use population reads much more, because if we don't have any definite reads, we can only go on population reads, and people's under the gun with $4.50 raises in 10 Snap we're probably not going to be getting too many folds when we three bet a hand like ace queen. So that's kind of the point I was wanting to
Yeah,
make there. Just finish the point off that we need to, if we don't have reads, we have to just rely on what's the typical 10L snap players under the gun raising range, and it's going to be pretty tight in the most part, I would say.
yeah, I have to agree with you, and I think like this is a good example already of the hands I've been having trouble with. Like, I think you should, but you said earlier on you would just call here, like, right?
Yeah, I would just call here, yeah. And I'm
I'm
not too fussed
not
if
a
the
big
big
fan of
blinds.
just cold calling from the blinds.
But what's a better option? I mean, it's better than folding, and we already have established that three betting's not great. Sometimes when in poker, we're
Right,
just faced with three shitty options. You know, and
exactly.
it's like they're all bad. But the thing with ace queen is if he's opening ace jack, ace ten, ace nine, king queen, those types of things, he's going to fold a lot of those hands to a three bet. So we basically, when we three bet, we fold out a lot of the stuff that we're dominating, and he sticks around with stuff that we're either flipping against us, like his pocket pairs and things, or four bets like ace king, which is a disaster, and four bets his aces and kings and things. We never get to suck out on kings if he four bets. We never get to suck out on queens or jacks or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, I don't like calling that much, but I think it's a better option than just three betting against someone we don't know anything about. And also, sometimes a big blind can squeeze, and then we can just stick around in the pot because ace queen's still going to play okay because we are setting somebody up for a squeeze spot. Now, it's not a typical squeeze spot because of the seatings of the under the gun and us squeezing from the small blind, but people just love to squeeze. So it's not like we have to fold if the big blind does squeeze. We can still sometimes call, particularly if the small blind comes along. So we're keeping our options open a little bit more. Whereas if we do three bet here like we did, and if the big blind then did like what I call four bet in with his kings, we'd have to fold. If the small blind four bet, we'd have to fold. I just think we're going to be shutting ourselves out the pot too often, or just winning small pots when people are at the bottom of the range. Both of which aren't really that exciting for us.
Yeah, I have to agree on that. Definitely.
It's just a bit
But
of a rough spot in general. I mean, Ace Queen versus Under the Gun from the small blind. It's just not a nice. It's not a particularly nice spot. It's not a horrible spot, but it's a sort of spot where none of our options are that appealing to us. But we have to choose one. I think calling's the best option of the three personally, unless we know something about Under the Gun.
okay, well, yeah, I like your explanation there, definitely, and it's something I will definitely be experimenting with because I don't do a lot of like cold calling from the blinds,
Okay,
and that may be one of the reasons why I'm not feeling as confident with hands like this in the blinds as that should be. Like,
no, we're just plotting pots. I mean, being aggressive from the blinds is obviously it's a good thing to be. We need to defend our blinds a decent amount. We'd like to defend them with aggression where possible. But I just don't think this is a spot where defending with aggression's particularly appropriate. Just because
okay,
of his stack size and the fact he's raised under the gun.
yeah, I have to agree on both of those points. So, do you want to see how post flop played out, or?
It's up to you. I mean, it looks like we're going to flop top pair and just stack off, and it's just. But maybe because because we're 150 blinds deep, perhaps we could look through it just to make sure that we're not making any really big spew because we are particularly deep here.
Yeah, UTG folded by the way, so I think we have a standard C bet here.
So we bet
I
we get
know, I
raised.
actually think I remember this hand. Like I was already a little bit worried, but
So when he cold calls and then raises on the flop, and it's unfortunate we can see his hand because it's going to be quite hard
yeah,
not to be result orientated here. But
exactly.
I'm already. Obviously, we need to get nervous. Every time we get raised post flop, we need to get nervous. It's not a particularly drawy board. I guess he can have maybe the occasional Jack 10 suited if he's bad. But there's not that many draws on there. So when he raises us, he's polarising to pretty much saying, look, I would normally say pocket fours or pocket nines, but I can see he's got kings. But he's normally saying that I've got a hand that's got one pair beat. So then
Yeah,
it's our job to decide, well, do you or don't you, or are you just bluffing? But when we've shown quite a bit of strength in the hand so far, because we have three bet versus under the gun, and then we see bet a dry flop, we're always showing Wesley kind of saying, we've got a hand here, and he's saying, I don't give a shit that you've got a hand, I'm raising. Now, we don't know anything about this guy because we've only got 63 hands on him. But I would already start to be getting a little bit nervous because we're very deep. If we were 100 blinds deep, I'd be less nervous. But we started the hand 160 blinds deep, and I don't really want to be in a situation where I end up getting close to 160 blinds in with just one pair in this spot.
Exactly.
Would he raise King Queen suited here? Because that's definitely a hand he could cold call with. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. We don't know. But the population probably just calls more often than not with Ace Queen. Sorry, with King Queen. If he has Ace Queen again, he more than likely just calls. So to me, it's what bluffs does he have that's cold called and then bluffed. Maybe he's turning a pocket pair into a bluff that thinks Ace King's missed, and they just want to protect their equity. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he could do this with a hand like pocket tens. But when we call, he's probably not going to continue bluffing with them. So we can maybe call one street and check fold the turn, something like that. Then what absolute bluffs can he have that he's going to continue bluffing with? Then I think you are looking just at maybe some kind of draws that he's made a loose call pre-flop with. But I would already be looking to maybe I would have called this one bet and then check folded the turn, because I think our hand's going to look an awful lot like aces, kings, and ace queen when we take this line. And if someone's going to continue betting when our range looks pretty strong, I'm just going to give them credit and probably check fold.
Yeah, and I like
turns.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wouldn't fold to this
on
raise.
the turn as well.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't have folded to that raise. I think that would be too weak.
I think I end up calling here though. I'm pretty sure actually. He bets half pot.
He doesn't really need to bet more than half pot because he's going to set himself up
exactly
for a river shove.
Yeah, and my plan was basically if he would fire again here to fold, I guess. Can't imagine. Maybe I paid. Yeah, I paid off a very small bet.
The thing is, we have to pay this size off.
Yeah.
Because we just can't fold there. We just think ourselves lucky that he didn't shove the river and put us in a much tougher spot. But we can definitely note that about this guy, that he then he bets quite small for value versus like capped ranges. Because then we can.
Yeah, I think I've got a note on that.
Some tighter folds against him.
I think I made a note from this hand in the 888 client as well. But,
yeah, because I think he's played the hand quite well in terms. I like the fact he just cold called pre-flop. I like his flop raise, and I like his turn sizing. To be honest, I just don't like his river sizing. I like everything he did until the river, and I think he should just shove the river because we have like ace queen a lot here. We have king queen some of the time, I guess. And he's only really got to be worried about us having two aces, I would imagine. If I was him, I would have shoved the river. I like everything he did until he shoved the river. And given the sizings he's used, I don't mind your line. I mean, I would probably have liked to have found a fold, but because he's bet so small on the turn of the river, I kind of guess we have to call down. So.
Yeah, and let's say had he bet like $5 here on the river, I would have folded, and obviously I would have folded to a shove, like.
Yeah,
but I felt like I had to pay this bet off. Exactly.
We have to. Yeah, there's just too much in there, and. Who knows? He looks like he's going to be a thin value, so he might just have a worse queen too, or he might have ace queen as well. I think we just have to pay that river sizing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be comfortable paying much more. But I do like what he did in the way, because he kind of has to shove our bets small, so maybe he played it fine.
Okay.
So there was no horrendous spew in that hand, but it just goes to show that how sometimes some thin pre-flop 3-bets can actually get us in quite a lot of trouble post-flop.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what I've been experiencing. Like,
is it possible before we put the next hand up that we could hide villain's hole cards? I don't know if we can or not, to be honest with you.
I'm not sure.
If we can, it's fine. Don't worry about it if we can.
Nope.
No, never mind. It's fine.
Show known hole cards is marked off. I'm not sure if I can. Like.
Well, no
There's
problem.
probably an option for it, but
it's not a problem. Yeah, we don't worry about that.
Okay, so we've got ace king here. Next example. Villain, I've got nearly 400 hands on him, but his name doesn't ring a bell to me.
It doesn't ring a bell. Is it possible you could have had notes with him in the client?
Yeah, could be, but I'm not sure.
Okay, right. Let's just.
I could have noted, like, yeah. So he min raises. Well, this is an easy 3-bet for value, I
Yep,
guess.
absolutely.
This is a spot where I'm not feeling as lost, I guess. Okay, so he flopped the set.
See,
Are you c-betting this board?
I would always see with that board. I think we can check call here a decent amount. Because when we see bet here, what are we hoping he folds? Or are we doing it for value? Are we hoping he calls? What are we doing with this bet?
We're not betting for value. Definitely not.
So
You could
what are
maybe
we?
fold like his lower pocket pairs. Let's say sevens and lower.
So how often do you think
Maybe.
people are going to fold pocket pairs for one C bet in 3-bet pots on this kind of board texture?
Good question.
I don't think. I
Probably
mean, I
not
think
too often.
you and I maybe fold a decent amount, but even us, if I was the sort of player, and I probably wouldn't here, but if I was the sort of player who would just like flat with pocket threes here, I probably wouldn't fold to one bet on this flop because you're going to have a lot of high cards that are bricked, and people C bet too much in 3-bet pots. So I don't think on this exact board texture we get too many folds from any pocket pairs, which basically means our bet is pretty much only going to fold out um, hands that have missed, and a lot of his hands that have missed have still not always likely to fold. If he's got like a Jack 10, King Queen, Jack Queen, suited connectors like middle suited connectors, a lot of them aren't going to fold. In fact, I think we get almost no folds on this board, unless he's a sort of player who's really bad and just peeling like ace-6 off pre and stuff like that. Then obviously we can get them to fold, but we don't need them to fold because we're already beating them. So I really don't like the c-bet here. I would have preferred to check and almost certainly call, because I think he can when we check, he can definitely stab with all his bluffs. He can stab with all his like Broadway cards that have missed, and his random suited connectors his call with that have missed. So I think I would prefer a check call here and keep his range wider than bet. I think when we bet, he folds a lot of the stuff that will stab when we check. So I think I'd rather, if we're going to put 115 in, I'd rather put it in by trying to catch a few of his like stabs and bluffs than I would by betting, because I just don't think we're going to get called by worse very often.
Okay.
If you don't agree with that, by the way, by all means, feel free to challenge me. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that is my outlook on things. If you want to challenge anything, you please do. If you think that what I've said there, if you don't agree with what I've said, please do. We'll have the conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
No, I think I agree with what you pointed out, but let's change the situation. And the 8 is a club. Would you then see bet because you have the backdoor nut flush draw?
I'd be more inclined to, yes. If the 8 was a 10, or if the 9 was a 10, or something like that. If I had a backdoor straight draw or backdoor flush draw or something, yes, I'd be more inclined to then, because there's more turn cards we can barrel. But we just say we bet here, he calls us, and the turn comes 4. We're just done with it, we can't really proceed much, and we're making it harder for ourselves to bluff catch as well then, because we're bloating the pot. So I would definitely see bet if there was 2 clubs on board, or if there was a 10 Jack or Queen on board. Other than that, I wouldn't see bet this board.
Yeah, I like that actually. So in this situation, we ended up c-betting, and he obviously just calls, and we turn the ace, I think, which is a disaster, of course. So yeah, bet pretty big. I think betting for value.
We get unlucky that he just calls. Because now we have to shove the river.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I think he played it fine.
I think he played it fine. I think we played it fine from the turn of the river. I think the c-bets, whatever. And the
exactly.
C-bets, it can't be bad. The c-bet can't be bad, because we're going to pick up the pot enough at the time. But I mean, I just don't think it's particularly good either on that exact board. But then once we hit that turn, I mean, we're just going to go bet shove. We're going to, because we're going to do that with some of our bluffs sometimes, and we want to do it just for value, because he can have peeled us with like just some sort of weird random ace. If he's got ace queen or ace 10 or something like that, or who knows. I mean, there's just things he can call with, because the bad players do silly things. So yeah, it's hard to put too many hands that you can think he can legitimately call us with, but we don't know how bad he is, and he might just be the sort of person who just goes sod it and just calling down here with 2 queens or something like that. or he might just have 9x and think we're bluffing and call down. We don't know. But once we hit the ace, we kind of just have to go bet, turn, shove, river. It's very standard once we hit.
Exactly. So if we change the situation on the flop again, and let's say we check call a $1 bet here from him,
Yep.
then the turn comes the ace. What do we do then?
Well, we're giving up the initiative, so I would just continue checking because we check call the flop because we think he's bluffing a decent amount. So we think he's bluffing a decent amount, and then the ace comes, which is typically a good scare card, and people use to bluff quite often. Why we would then surely logically continue checking to him, thinking he's going to continue with his aggression a decent amount of the time. Now, obviously, it's unfortunate if he's stabbed with pocket tens, and then we've just sucked out on him because he's going to check back most of the time. But that's just one of those things. We can still value bet the river when he checks back the turn.
Exactly.
I think because we've given up the initiative and because we've checked to him, expecting him to bluff a decent amount of the time, which is part of the reason why we've checked, I think we need to allow him to continue his bluff or give him the chance to
Yeah, I
continue
agree
his
on that.
bluff. And then if he doesn't
So we would
bet,
just
then
check call again here.
yeah, if he just check call again, and if he doesn't bet, if he just check back, then we just bet the river. There's 4 in the pot. I would just bet the river like 250 something like that, and try and get some crying calls from his pocket pairs that stabbed and then got scared.
Yeah, I like that line. So I think we've cracked this one as well.
Yep.
Next one, ace 10. Could be a blind versus blind against a loose passive player apparently. I'm not really familiar with it. Okay.
So what
So
do you know
button-
about? Do you know? I mean, you've only got 200 hands on V Pepe, but did you know anything about him at the time of the hand?
Nope. His name doesn't ring a bell either. Like,
So because when someone pots from the button, I get less excited to 3-bet kind of hands like this because I just think the people who are bad enough to be potting buttons, because let's face it, good players don't pot buttons these days when they're opening. I think they're
Right.
just less likely to be folding. So unless we think he's going to be bad enough to call with a lot of worse hands, ace 10 off isn't the nicest of hands. So now the next thing I would then look at is Rap Tuck. What do I know about Rap Tuck? If he's likely to squeeze a lot, I would probably 3-bet just to protect myself from getting squeezed. If I thought Rap Tuck was a nit or a loose passive player or something like that, I maybe would be more tempted to just call. But it would depend very much on this Rap Tuck character, on how I would play the hand here, because we don't know much about V Pepe, but we do know that he's chosen unusual, not unusual, but and not particularly popular open sites from the button. So that straight away we can start thinking this guy's maybe not going to be that good. So he's not going to be that good. I don't want to start 3-betting hands like ace 10 off against him when I think he's going to call too often, or maybe we do something stupidly bad aggressive and just 4-bet me too often. So I would have looked at Rap Tuck and made my decision based on him. And I'm guessing we didn't know too much about him either.
No,
so in the
we
absence
didn't.
of not knowing much about him, I probably would have gone for a 3-bet, but straight away I'm not in love with the situation because we have an unknown in the big blind and we have an unknown that's potted from the button.
Right.
So yeah, maybe I don't know. I mean, I think folding's too weak here. But again, it's one of those situations where none of our options are particularly enticing. But yeah, I probably would have just 3-bet.
I don't really like my sizing though.
No, I don't. I think
Like-
I'd make it a bit bigger because his open's bigger. I would have preferred to see something like 110.
Yeah, 110, 120 is like more or way better.
Yeah, we're going to put
and
more
more
pressure on
standard
him.
for me as well.
We're going to get
Yeah.
more folds when we use that size just because we're asking to put more money in. We're ripping more strength. And we do want folds here. We're not really wanting calls. What we're hoping happens most of the time here is everyone folds and we just pick up the 5 big blinds that were in the pot.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I would play it out. Rap Tuck just
call by
flatted.
Rap Tuck. Yeah, and we kind of get what we don't want, which is a multi-way pot with the ace 10 off.
So from Hold'em Manager, I think I c-betted here, and I think that's way too ambitious. This should just be a check fold, I think. Yeah, we do c-bet half pot.
Yeah,
I don't like the sizing either.
I mean, if we are going to c-bet here, I would prefer to see us probably c-bet really quite a lot smaller than that. C-bet like $1 or something, just to try and get some. If we are going, because I'm presuming we're going for value. If we are going for value, we need to make it small enough where people can just get curious and just call with a lot of hands they shouldn't be calling with. When we make it half pot, we're kind of definitely starting to over-rep our hand a little bit. And when we get cold call again by a rap tuck, we need to start thinking about what's his range for just cold calling. It's going to be, I would imagine, I'm surprised Ace King's in it. We'd expect most people to put a cold 4-bet in there with Ace King. So I would be looking at his range usually being something like Ace Queen, pocket nines, pocket tens, pocket jacks. Probably not pocket queens very often, but it's going to be a pretty well defined range and pretty strong, assuming that we're slightly aware of rap tuck and assuming that we know he's not an absolute whale. And if we didn't know anything about him, then it makes it a little bit harder. But yeah, his range is going to be quite strong. Certainly stronger than ours, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Certainly stronger than our actual hand, should I say. Not stronger than our range, but certainly stronger than the hand we've chose to 3-bet with here. So I would probably start by checking here. And I wouldn't always check fold. But I would start by checking because we don't really want to start bloating the pot too much.
I think I would actually most of the times just give up on this flop. Like we have middle pair, it's two pretty much unknown players who I'm not giving a lot of credit for like being super awesome or something, but they're just gonna call with like any two clubs or any king X, and there's maybe queen jack, like ace queen, whatever. Like ace queen we have beat though, but
yeah, there's lots of stuff that just isn't falling, and even if they do fall with ace queen, they're going to be able to win the pot a decent amount because we're going to have to check a lot of the time, and they're just going to be, if they're good, they're going to be able to just like double barrel us off our ace 10 then.
Exactly, and that's why I don't like playing out of position. Like, it's so hard to play these middle pairs and stuff like that.
Of course it is, yeah, absolutely, which is why I don't necessarily like 3-betting hands like ace 10 from the blinds. Unless it's against somebody who thinks opening a disproportionate amount and they're going to fold a lot. I want to know I've got a lot of fold equity before I do it. If I don't think I've got much fold equity, I'm not that excited about 3-betting ace 10. To be completely ace 10 suited, yeah, I'm fine with. Ace 10 offsuit, no, I need to know.
Yeah, it's pretty poor. Yeah.
I need to know I'm going to get a bunch of folds, or be confident I'm going to get a bunch of folds.
Makes sense. So let's see what we did on the turn here. We did bet again.
No, that bet, I really don't like that bet.
I agree.
I mean, I guess you could argue that that maybe he could still call with some draws, etc. But it's starting to get very ambitious versus his range. I mean, we need him to have things like ace jack suited here, ace jack queen suited, ace queen suited, and he's going to raise some of them pre-flop. He's going to raise some of them on the flop. You know, yeah, I just don't like this bet. It's kind of, this looks to me like you just didn't want to give up on the hand, so you just decided I don't want to give up, so I may as well bet. But not really thinking about what you're trying to make him fold. I guess maybe you could argue that by double barreling here, we could make you fold jacks or queens.
I think that's it. I think that was my plan. But yeah, it's super ambitious, and I don't like it that much. But
no, because we need him not to have called 4-bet those hands in the first place, and then be capable of folding them. So we need a lot of things in our favour for this line to work.
So yeah, as I said, I don't really like the way I played this one, but let's see how it continues. I'm hoping to check.
I'm hoping
here.
we just check fold here. That's what I'm hoping for. Or check call a small bet. That's too. I wouldn't check call.
I think I should just fold there. And
yeah, I would check call a really small bet.
And it's pretty poor, like.
But I would probably rather check call a jam or a small bet there than check call that, because that looks super value-y. If he jams, we can conceivably put some misflushes in his range. If he bets really small, we can just call because we're getting decent odds to call. When he bets half pot, he looks really, really value-y. And I think for the second time, we can consider ourselves lucky that he didn't jam, because I think this is the sort of spot where I could convince myself, as we played it, to call a jam on the river. Because I think I would convince myself that he had missed draws enough at the time. Even though I know it's probably not true. I would, it's just how we think, isn't it? You know, we tend to think that, oh, he's shoving, what can he have for value here that he's shoving with? Expecting him not to have ace king, but we're kind of unlucky that he's got ace king, because a lot of the time you'd expect people to just call 4-bet ace king in this spot. So these are all the things that
it doesn't happen too often, though, I think, in this population at least.
This sort of player, he's got a really high 3-bet over a small sample of 10. But then he doesn't. I'd expect people with a high three bet, even though it's a ridiculously small sample size, I'd expect them people to be called four betting ace king and a bunch here. I'd expect people with high three bets to four bet ace king a decent amount of the time. So the fact he doesn't is something I would definitely note. I would note that he doesn't cold four bet, or he didn't cold four bet ace king in a like super standard spot, just because I think it's those sort of things are important to know about people. Because I think it's unlucky
Yeah,
that
his
he has
three bet
ace
is a
king and then
little.
hits.
It is a little bit cluttered though because he three bet once from MP out of three times, so that's 33.3%. So he doesn't actually three bet 10%, I think.
Ah, right. So where's that 10% come from then? It says there he's three betting
It's the
10%.
total of all positions, but he has like one super high because our sample sizes are so small.
Of course, yeah. No, I was just
So,
making the general point. If we had a lot of hands on people, and I'm making the point
right,
for people who have a lot of hands on people and have HUDs that are available to them. So yeah,
exactly.
we've got unlucky in this hand again in terms of he has slow played against us and outflopped us, and then kind of
Value owned
yeah
us.
value ones. We have got a little bit unlucky, but again, it stems from pre-flop where we've made in my opinion, a marginal three bet, and then quite a lot of these marginal pre-flop decisions that seem like a good idea at the time can quite often come back and bite us later in the hand. So it just
Exactly,
stands to
and
warning, just be careful when you are three betting pre-flop. Just take a little bit more care over the hands you're doing it with and the situations you're doing it in.
yeah, absolutely.
'Cause it's dead easy to just
So
see, oh, button open, we've got ace 10 off, three bet. It's dead easy just to make that quick connection. But that isn't taking into account enough of the situation of who's in the pot with us and what do their ranges look like. This is very much just what a lot of players will call standard. And I think when we have standards, it limits us into what we can achieve as players. And I hate standards. You know I hate standards. I would three bet this against someone, not against others. I wouldn't just always three bet this, but I bet a ton of people out there are auto three betting this. And I think we can just do better than that. We can, but if we pay attention and we know a lot about our opponents, or we have good population reads, I think we can do better than just having this kind. I'm presuming this is a standard for you to just three bet here, and perhaps we
um,
don't need it to be a standard.
I don't think it's like really a standard. I do overthink these situations with hands like these, but I'm just not feeling super like comfortable with hands like ace 10 in the small blind because I feel like I'm do make mistakes sometimes, costly mistakes as we can see now.
Yeah, it's a tricky spot because you're thinking you should be three betting because it's a strong hand. If you look at it from like a pure like big blind point of view, we're only giving up half a big blind, and maybe we're giving up a little bit of EV in three betting, and then I don't know whatever, just picking the pot up. But if you ag at the moment, if your game's not in a place where you can trust yourself post flop, and you can most of the time. But for players who maybe aren't quite where you are with poker at the minute, who three bet these hands and then get themselves in all sorts of trouble post flop, the EV you gain just by making the three bet is perhaps going to be lost with your post flop mistakes. So if you do
Exactly.
feel uncomfortable doing it, you stop doing it until you've maybe thought about it more, figured it out more, or until you're happier with your post flop play. Once you get happier with your post flop play, you can start making more of these pre flop three bets. But whilst you're still making some mistakes post flop, perhaps you want to protect yourself by not three betting these hands and just protecting yourself from spots that you're not quite yet equipped to deal with.
I think that's a
This is
very,
definitely
very good point,
yeah,
what
it's
you're
definitely a plus
saying
EV
now.
three bet for sure. But it's only a plus EV three bet if we're playing well post flop too. If we're giving all that EV up by playing poorly post flop, then all of a sudden it becomes a negative EV spot for us in general.
Yeah, and that's something I've taken into consideration myself as well. Like, I've recently started tightening up a little bit and just folding those hands out, knowing that it's probably not like game theory optimal, but I do feel confident about my post-flop game in position, but out of position, I just tend to make mistakes that probably compensate the actual value of the hand.
Yeah, so right now for you, I would probably say continue toying with three betting these spots because your game's probably in a place now where you want to be toying and working on this part of your game. So maybe you could be starting to three bet these more often, and then use it to make sure that you're not use it to make sure, but use it to practice your post-flop situations. Because when you move up in stakes, you're going to have to start three betting more, and you're going to be in these situations a bit more. So you may as well start preparing now. For you, I think three betting this hand and then figuring out how to play your best post flop's probably appropriate for you to be doing right now. But there's probably some players watching this video who aren't quite at your level yet, and what they should be doing right now is folding it and then looking to improve the post flop play before adding it into their three betting range. I think you're probably at a place now where you maybe should be three betting this most of the time and then working out how to play it post flop better. I think that's
Yeah,
probably
and I
where
think
you're at.
yeah, I agree with you, and I'm pretty glad that we've got all those filters and set up and stuff. Like, I've never digged so deep into Hold'em Manager, but it actually gives me the opportunity to analyze spots
Yeah, I think perhaps
for myself as well.
Because it took us a while to set that up before we started the video. Perhaps before the video ends, we could just show people the filter we set up, just so we could like talk through how we set it up to get you to find the hands that are putting you in the spots that you're not comfortable with. So.
Yeah, definitely, we could
We
do
didn't put it at the start of the video because we knew it'd be a little bit messy setting it up, and it wouldn't make for a good video. But now we've got it set up, it'd probably be nice to share what it
Yep.
is that we did.
that. I agree on that. So you want to have one more example? Maybe I can find something within regular or something.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I mean, I've totally lost track of time. I've no idea how long we've been going for, but I'm enjoying it. So let's keep going. Who cares?
Let's see. This is a regular, but we're playing this guy, I guess, and I don't know him that much, so I'm gonna skip that through. That's the first one we won, though. This is a reg, and this is
Let's
a
do
regular as
this
well.
one because
Yeah.
we've three bet
Okay,
again
this is-
versus under the gun with a pretty marginal hand.
And this is something I've only found out like very recently when I started analyzing the regulars on my limit. Like, this guy is super nitty, and we should just snap fold here. But,
I think folding's maybe we can consider calling, but I think
well, we could
folding's
call,
probably
yeah,
the
because
best,
we're deep.
yeah. We're deep, and nut flushes is really sweet when we're deep. So I probably would call, but three
Yep.
betting deep against
Missed
a
that.
nit under the gun. Yeah. How
But,
recently was
yeah.
this hand played?
I think there's a timestamp on it, isn't? Yeah, it's 36, so like 3 weeks ago, and I figured
Right.
only.
So
Yeah.
a lot of the hands you got on this guy, you won't have had this read on him at the time because you've probably played a lot of hands with him since then. So you
Yes,
didn't necessarily,
exactly.
Yeah, you didn't necessarily know he was a massive nit when you played the hand.
Nope.
Yeah, so I think it's important to put context to it. So, yep, let's go from here.
So we can play the next one, I guess.
Well, no, but I think we should still look at that hand because we still have made no matter who it's against, it's still going to be a very thin three bet, unless it's a squeeze, maybe. So if someone else calls, then maybe it's a squeeze.
Yeah, it is a squeeze. Then still, I would never do it with my current read now.
No. And I'm presuming you'll know a bit more
I
about
think I end
Moises
up
now as well.
value owning myself here.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a regular as well.
But again, you wouldn't have known that at the time.
So I don't hate the c-bet here, but
No, I don't
we
hate the
should
c-bet at all.
check here and probably fold to most of his bets.
Yeah, we should definitely be folding here, though, if we're checking.
He checks back.
But again, I think I probably would have barreled the turn.
You would?
Well, yes, just because I don't think he's going to have that much ace-x in his range, and because I wouldn't particularly just want to check fold. So I'd rather just have blocked the turn. I would have probably bet around $283, something like that, because I wouldn't be ready to check fold just yet. And I think if we check any bets, we probably have to fold because we don't really want to be check calling turn, check calling river too often. But yeah, he can still have hands like pocket queens, pocket jacks, etc. And I think we can get a little bit of value from if we size our bet correctly. I'm still thinking and betting in terms of thin value because I think there's only really ace king and ace queen we should be scared of. It's not that likely he's going to be peeling twos or eights. I mean, he might. Lots of bad players do set mine in these spots. But he would have raised the flop some of the time. If he's got a set, he might raise the turn. So I would bet here again with a view to just try to show my hand down on the river. Because I just think we can just get some thin value still. We need to, if he has got any draws, if he's got like king queen of clubs or something, we need to be charging him for that. So Yeah, I would have bet. I would have put a block bet out probably around anything between like 260, 270 to $3, $3.10, something like that. And if he raised, I would have snap folded. If he called, I would have been check something on the river, depending on the river card and what he did.
So I think my personal read here, if I remember correctly, I felt like I was dominated by either ace queen or ace king, or maybe ace jack as well. So that's why I checked, and then the river rolls off with a queen, and I think I tried to rep ace queen here,
The
which
problem
is the
is
hand
the
he
way the
had.
hand's played out. He can easily have pocket queens here. He can very easily have pocket queen. I think a queen's one of the worst cards in the deck because I think a queen, a jack, or a king are all pretty bad for us. Um, because he can have all of those three sets. I mean, yeah, he might four bet kings pre, but because we're deep and because we three bet him from the small blinds, he might just call with kings pre flop. I expect a lot of players not to four bet kings in this exact spot pre flop, given how
You
deep they are.
probably wouldn't know.
So I think any Broadway card's going to be really bad. It's either going to give him two pairs or it's going to give him sets a lot of the time. So I would have bet the turn, but I wouldn't have bet this river. But having said that, we blocked it, and maybe we can still get some thin value from pocket jacks here. Maybe, who knows? Maybe he has something like Queen Jack and calls or King Queen and calls. So I think yeah, it's not terrible. It can't be terrible. But I prefer to have bet the turn than bet the river here.
Yeah, I actually think that is a better line, but as played, I do like my sizing a
Yeah,
lot,
the Sergeant's fine, absolutely fine.
and then he ends up just flatting here.
Yeah, which is
Um,
pretty nitty. He should
yeah,
really be racing there.
yeah, absolutely. Like he pretty much has me crushed with two pair here.
Yeah, he can
Not
race
sure
fold
what
there.
he's afraid
He
of.
can race to like $6.40 there and just fold to our shove very comfortably. And play the hand absolutely fine because we're not going to come over the top of him there with a bluff ever, so he can very comfortably race fold there.
Yeah, I agree on that.
So yeah, I mean I think he's played the hand poorly. I think we've got away with it there a little bit. I think we could have lost more for sure,
Yeah,
but then again I
definitely.
wouldn't have three bet pre.
You wouldn't have.
No, not voice under the gun.
Well, with my current read now. Sorry for any if you hear any background noise, by the way.
No, I
There
couldn't
was a
hear
car
anything.
passing by.
I couldn't hear a thing.
Okay, but yeah, with my current read on this guy, I would probably call, considering we have a suited ace
Yeah,
indeed, and we're
absolutely.
super deep. But let's say it was 100 bigs, effective stacks, I would just fold it. Like
Yeah, I think
because
folding's
he's not.
maybe too tight, but yeah, I can see why you're saying fold. I mean, I'm just like a suited ace junkie. I love my suited aces, and I think this is the type of player that when we do hit, we can win a lot of money from because these nits they do tend to overplay their big pocket pairs, and they're like if they make top pair, top kicker or something, they will overplay them a heck of a lot. So I just think well, I think we can play it just for flush value or two pair value and be fine with it. And if we just don't hit a good flop, just for check fold. Or I mean, if we hit an ace, obviously we can check call, and then I guess when we hit an ace, we are going to end up getting value down just a little bit. But I think we can. I mean, I think the flush value alone against a nitty players under the gun range is going to be pretty decent, and the fact that we can sometimes flop trips or flop two pairs. I think it's playable enough. I understand why you're saying I would fold it, but I wouldn't. I would fold ace 10 off in a heartbeat. I would fold ace 9 suited and things like that, but ace 10 suited so we can make Broadway and we can make nut flushes. I think it's enough for me just to want to see a flop at least. But I mean,
Um,
I don't hate folding. I'm not knocking you for folding, but I think I would just about peel.
yeah, with this stack sizes, I would definitely peel, but 100 bigs deep, I don't think I would because, as we can see, he doesn't like even raise his two pair here. So if he's making mistakes, it's missing value, in my opinion. He's not going to spew or whatever, and we're basically just playing to get the flush or
No, this
like
guy
the nut
isn't. I
straight.
was talking more about just generally versus nits who raise under the gun. I won't look at this particular player because you're right, he does look particularly passive. So I wasn't talking about him in particular, but if a nit raised under the gun and I've got a hand that can make the nuts in a few different ways, I'm probably going to want to see a flop against him. And I don't think it's going to be a huge mistake. But again, I don't think folding's a huge mistake either. And the fact we're talking about it for so long means it's that close that when things are really quite close, they matter much less. It's the spots that we make really big mistakes that matter. If we have a really close spot, it doesn't really matter what we do because it's close. It doesn't matter what we do. It's the spots. It matters what we do when we're doing something very wrong. That's when it matters. It doesn't matter
Right.
anywhere near as much in close spots. So I don't want to mark the point too much because you're right. Folding's fine, and I think calling's probably fine too. So we're
I
arguing
think
with two
calling
sides
is
of the
fine
same
as
coin.
well.
Yeah,
If you're a little bit deeper than 100 bigs, like the value of your hand increases, the
absolutely.
implied odds.
Yes, you are absolutely correct.
So I think we've been talking for like an hour now
Have we really?
already.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, I
Well, in
think
that
so.
case, then let's just go to the filter and show the people watching the video how we set the filters up, and then wow, look at that.
Okay.
We did 3 hands in an hour. Wow, good stuff.
No, I think we've got a little more.
Have we
But
got
yeah,
more than
we've
that?
definitely tackled some interesting things, I think. So yeah, I'm using Holder Manager 2. We went to more filters, and there was actually quite some things we had to figure out. First of all, we had the whole card filters. Appears you have to select none first, and then pick the hands you would like to actually see. So we did all the suited aces, I guess. Ace kings, king queens, ace queen off, up to ace 8 off, queen jack, queen 10, king 10. I did the offs as well, but yeah, I think we shouldn't be 3-betting those anyways.
No, this is just for the
So
purpose
yeah,
of for people who don't do this kind of work. This is how we set it up to find
exactly.
the spots that you're finding difficult. It doesn't really matter which hands we put in there. It's just this is how we set it up so we could actually find the hands that you were having problems with.
Right.
So
So
yeah, so we
we
did that.
used this for this something like this for the session.
Yep.
Then we had to go to other advanced filters. Take the pre-flop one. We did 3-bet because we want to analyze 3-bet pots. The value has to be true. If you don't want 3-bet pots, you take false, which makes a lot of sense, and you just click the plus to add them.
Yep.
Then we needed more because we didn't really want to look at all-in pre-flop spots or all-in on the flop spots. So we've both ticked those as false. And that's how no, not yet, because we had to do the positional things, which are basic, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just used the blinds here. And
then when you
then
run,
our
yeah.
report rolled out.
And then when we go back to the main page, it just loads all the hands up that meet the criteria that we've set, and it gives you a lot. It just gives you all the hands then that we can look at that have been giving you problems. And it's something that when I was playing on sites that I was using Holder Manager on, I was doing this quite regularly. I usually did it when I found myself lacking a little bit of confidence, and then to have a think about, right, what am I struggling with then? And then I'd just put that situation, wherever it is. Sometimes it can be when you've just cold called on the button, right? What hands am I cold calling the button with? If I'm thinking, I'm having a problem with that, I would just set it up for all hands cold call on button. Then I would just go through the hands, see which hands I'm making profit with, see which hands I'm losing a lot with. Because sometimes it would be quite an eye opener. I think for me, I went through a spell of basically cold calling with any suited connector on the button, thinking that I would be able to play people post flop quite a lot. I would make a lot of flushes and straights and all those kind of things. Then I actually realised that I was losing quite a lot of money with a lot of the lower suited connectors. And I did, but until you do this work, it's hard to know what you're winning with, what you're losing with. You only have a gut feeling, and you remember all the big pots you've won, and you think, oh, it does work because I won a massive pot with me 3-2 suited. But then you look in Holder Manager and you see you're losing money with it because you're just missing a ton of the time. So your implied odds are what you think they are. So it's just all things like that. Like I did one for raising pocket pairs under the gun, and I found I wasn't making money with pocket twos through pocket sixes under the gun. So for a little while, until I got my head around why I wasn't making money, I just stopped raising with them for a while. And just things like that. It's just going through lots of different filters, just playing with it, just having fun with it, and setting up all kinds of different filters for different situations, seeing what's making you money, what's not making you money, doing more of the stuff that's making you money and then doing less of the stuff that's not making you money, and thinking about why it's not making you money. And it just really opens your mind, and it's dead interesting to do. And if people would like to do this with me, who haven't done it before and think I'd rather do the first one with somebody, please do get in touch, because I really do enjoy doing it too. And it will open your mind. I'm sure now you're going to go away and have a ton of fun with your holding manager. Because I bet you're going to
Yeah,
learn loads of different filters now and find loads of different things about yourself that you just didn't know.
yeah.
And,
For me, this was absolutely gold indeed. Like I've never like even hit the filters. I guess I just like tend to analyze big pods, and there's just so many spots you're missing. And
yeah,
yeah, I've got the tools now, I think, to study and review and analyze stuff for myself as well. So yeah, thank you for that.
no worries. Tracking software is an absolutely wonderful resource, and I would say 95 or more percent of the people get nothing out of it, because they just all they do is look at sessions, they review the big pots they've won and lost, and then they close it. And all these
Right.
reports and filters, they're absolutely fantastic, and you can learn so much about yourself if you just play with them, just fiddle around, search for certain hands, search for certain scenarios. Just you can get lost in it. You can spend hours on it doing it, and it is fun. If you're into poker, it's fun. It sounds like it's quite laborious, but you will get addicted to it. It's a lot of fun, and you'll find you're altering your ranges constantly. You'll be putting hands in and out of your ranges that you'd never considered before, and yeah, it will open your mind. It can't do anything but improve you. If people
Yeah,
do
it's
want to
great,
do it
definitely.
and they want to do it with me for the first time, please do get in touch. I'm quite cheap. Okay, buddy. And how long have we
Okay.
been going for then? I've no idea how long
Yeah,
we've been going for here.
I think it's close
56
to an
minutes.
hour.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, so we'll leave it there for now. We didn't get into some of the stuff you wanted to talk about, but we can save that for next week.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
Okay, sir.
I absolutely enjoyed doing something else than a sweat for once, and yeah, I think it's definitely important as well, and it was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. So excellent stuff, buddy. Until next week, I guess we'll call that a session. And yeah, good luck for the week. And if you come up with anything good for next week, please do it, because this was your idea this week. So yeah, good idea. I
Yeah,
liked it. I think
thanks.
it's been a
And
good
I'll
video.
definitely keep in touch with you, of course.
I'm sure you will. You take care, buddy. Bye for now.
Thanks. See ya. Bye.